Alright, welcome back to this new inspirational video. This will be part of a larger series where I'll be narrating the book The Science of Getting Rich while offering additional explanation to anyone out there that has either read it already or has never heard of it, because that way hopefully we can learn something more about how to apply these ideas in our lives. Now, this book was originally written, or at least published, somewhere around 1910, so over 100 years ago. I've made a couple of videos in the past addressing certain points from the book, but I realized I might as well share the whole thing because it's in public domain anyway, and that way anyone that hasn't heard of it yet, well, at least can discover it through this channel by now. So first, let's start out with the preface that the author wrote. He said, "This book is pragmatical, not philosophical. A practical manual, not a treatise upon theories. It is intended for the men and women whose most pressing need is for money, who wish to get rich first and philosophize afterward. It is for those who have so far found neither the time, the means, nor the opportunity to go deeply into the study of metaphysics, but who want results and who are willing to take the conclusions of science as a basis for action, without going into all the processes by which those conclusions were reached." Now, first of all, in this paragraph, he says this book is intended for the men and women whose most pressing need is for money. Now, currently you might not have a pressing need for money, which, if that's the case, I'm happy for you because it's not fun having such issues in life. But this book actually offers guidance and ideas that work on a much broader scale than that. That really is the beauty of the words that he left us through his own book. Because I found out that all the techniques that he's talking about in order to get rich can be applied to all sorts of areas in our lives in general. But we'll get into that over time, and then you'll have a bigger picture and better picture of how to actually go about it for yourself. Now let's go back to his words. "It is expected that the reader will take the fundamental statements upon faith, just as he would take statements concerning a law of electrical action if they were promulgated by a Marconi or an Edison, and taking the statements upon faith that he will prove their truth by acting upon them without fear or hesitation. Every man or woman who does this will certainly get rich, for the science herein applied is an exact science, and failure is impossible. For the benefit, however, of those who wish to investigate philosophical theories and so secure a logical basis for faith, I will here cite certain authorities. The monistic theory of the universe, the theory that one is all and that all is one, that one substance manifests itself as the seeming many elements of the material world, is of Hindu origin and has been gradually winning its way into the thought of the Western world for 200 years. He also went on to say that it is the foundation of all the Oriental philosophies and those of Descartes, Spinoza, Leibniz and Schopenhauer, Hegel and Emerson. I'm sorry if I did mispronounce a few of those names because they are kind of strange, let's be honest here. Now, the reader who would dig into the philosophical foundations of this is advised to read Hegel and Emerson for himself. In writing this book, I have sacrificed all other considerations to plainness and simplicity of style, so that all might understand. The plan of action laid down herein was deduced from the conclusions of philosophy. It has been thoroughly tested and bears the supreme test of practical experiment. It works. If you wish to know how the conclusions were arrived at, read the writings of the authors mentioned above. And if you wish to reap the fruits of their philosophies in actual practice, read this book and do exactly as it tells you to do." This is very important, you see, those final words, read this book and do exactly as it tells you to do. A little earlier in this preface he even mentioned something along the lines that it is expected that the reader will take the fundamental statements upon faith, just as he would take statements concerning a law of electrical action if they were promulgated by Edison, for example. And then he went on to say, taking the statements upon faith, and that he will prove their truth by acting upon them without fear or hesitation. That's actually a large request if you think about it, because the average person, when reading a book like this, they might have a lot of questions about how the author came up to these ideas. How did he stumble upon these ideas? Why is he suggesting I do this? All sorts of reasons might be going on in our minds that cause us to be unable to actually act upon the ideas that were suggested to begin with. So he's actually reminding us here that we need to have an open mind while studying his material and then experiment with it for ourselves. So if you've been having difficulty applying his techniques, maybe it's because you're still not having an open mind to the point that you're willing to take action upon them without fear or hesitation. So basically we want to put our whole trust into what he said. It sounds kind of scary at first, because if you do it with the wrong person, you might end up in trouble. The good news is, his theories and his suggestions are actually so powerful, you can't even imagine what it will do for your life. So now let's get into the first chapter of the book. Chapter 1 is called The Right to be Rich. Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains that it is not possible to live a really complete or successful life unless one is rich. No man can rise to his greatest possible height in talent or soul development unless he has plenty of money. For to unfold the soul and to develop talent, he must have many things to use, and he cannot have these things unless he has money to buy them with. A man develops in mind, soul and body by making use of things, and society is so organized that man must have money in order to become the possessor of things. Therefore, the basis of all advancement for man must be the science of getting rich. The object of all life is development, and everything that lives has an inalienable right to all the development it is capable of attaining. Man's right to life means his right to have the free and unrestricted use of all the things which may be necessary to his fullest mental, spiritual and physical unfoldment, or in other words, his right to be rich. In this book, I shall not speak of riches in a figurative way. To be really rich does not mean to be satisfied or contented with a little. No man ought to be satisfied with a little if he is capable of using and enjoying more. The purpose of nature is the advancement and unfoldment of life, and every man should have all that can contribute to the power, elegance, beauty and richness of life. To be content with less is sinful. Well, those are pretty harsh words, because if we're content with less, well, you might assume that he thinks we're sinning. Actually, you're only sinning in the real sense of the word if you have a goal, an idea, a dream in your mind that you want to achieve, but you're not really going for it, or you're missing the mark. That's what Neville Goddard would say. To sin means to miss your mark in life. It means not living up to your highest good, your highest dreams that you want to manifest. So in that sense, you could consider it a sin, but not in the way how we usually consider the word. It's not something to be ashamed of, it's just something to be aware of for yourself. Now Wallace went on to write, "The man who owns all he wants for the living of all the life he is capable of living is rich, and no man who has not plenty of money can have all he wants. Life has advanced so far and become so complex that even the most ordinary man or woman requires a great amount of wealth in order to live in a manner that even approaches completeness. Every person naturally wants to become all that they are capable of becoming. This desire to realize innate possibilities is inherent in human nature. We can't help wanting to be all that we can be. Success in life is becoming what you want to be. You can become what you want to be only by making use of things, and you can have the free use of things only as you become rich enough to buy them. To understand the science of getting rich is therefore the most essential of all knowledge." This is very interesting what he just wrote. Success in life is becoming what you want to be. You can become what you want to be only by making use of things. If we stop it right there, then it's very important right here and now to burn into your mind that you can become what you want to be only by making use of your own mind. So we change the words around a little bit, but that's ultimately the cause behind all physicality, behind the results that we get. It's how we use our mind. So if you want to become what you want to be, the good news is all you have to learn again is to make great use of your mind. And future chapters are going to dive into exactly how to use your mind. But you might brush over all of it or not really get the whole point that he tried to convey through his book. But that's exactly the reason for this narration of mine, so that you maybe get a better idea of what to pay attention to. Now let's go back to his words. There's nothing wrong in wanting to get rich. The desire for riches is really the desire for a richer, fuller and more abundant life. And that desire is praiseworthy. The man who does not desire to live more abundantly is abnormal. And so the man who does not desire to have money enough to buy all he wants is abnormal. There are three motives for which we live. We live for the body, we live for the mind, we live for the soul. No one of these is better or holier than the other. All are alike desirable, and not one of the three, body, mind or soul, can live fully if either of the others is cut short of full life and expression. It is not right or noble to live only for the soul and deny mind or body. and it's wrong to live for the intellect and deny body or soul. We are all acquainted with the loathsome consequences of living for the body and denying both mind and soul. We see that real life means the complete expression of all that man can give forth through body, mind and soul. Whatever he can say, no man can be really happy or satisfied unless his body is living fully in every function, and unless the same is true of his mind and his soul. Wherever there is unexpressed possibility or function not performed, there is unsatisfied desire. Desire is possibility seeking expression or function seeking performance. This is so vitally important, these lines, where he talks about desire. Wherever there is unexpressed possibility or function not performed, there's unsatisfied desire. Desire is possibility seeking expression or function seeking performance. Now look at your own life. What is it that you desire to realize? And then use his words. Reflect on your desire together with the words he shared with us right here and there. He said it is function not performed. There's unsatisfied desire. It is a possibility seeking expression or a function seeking performance. In other words, what you desire to realize is a possibility seeking to be expressed with and through you, so it can become a reality for you. And that's all we teach through this channel, through other videos, is how people can do that. How they can use their imagination to actually realize whatsoever they desire. Because the desire is proof that you have within yourself the power to do it. This is something he will say as well later on in the chapter, but it's actually very true. Or at least he won't say it later on in the chapter but in the book, but it's so true. People make the mistake that they think, even though I desire to realize this dream, I can never achieve it, because right now they can't see how to do it. But yet that doesn't really matter. If you desire to achieve it, the way will be created for you. The desire is given to you by God, by the universe, in the hopes that you will take it serious and let it become your life, so you live a fulfilled and most meaningful existence while you're here on planet Earth. This is so important, why you should always pay attention to your desires, even when studying books like this. Now let's go back to his words. Man cannot live fully in body without good food, comfortable clothing and warm shelter, and without freedom from excessive toil. Rest and recreation are also necessary to his physical life. He cannot live fully in mind without books and time to study them, without opportunity for travel and observation, or without intellectual companionship. To live fully in mind, he must have intellectual recreations and must surround himself with all the objects of art and beauty he is capable of using and appreciating. To live fully in soul, man must have love, and love is denied expression by poverty. Because after all, a man's highest happiness is found in the bestowal of benefits on those he loves. Love finds its most natural and spontaneous expression in giving. The man who has nothing to give cannot fill his place as a husband or father, as a citizen or as a man. It is in the use of material things that a man finds full life for his body, develops his mind and unfolds his soul. It is therefore of supreme importance to him that he should be rich. It is perfectly right that you should desire to be rich. If you are a normal man or woman, you cannot help doing so. It is perfectly right that you should give your best attention to the science of getting rich, for it is the noblest and most necessary of all studies. If you neglect this study, you are derelict in your duty to yourself, to God and humanity, for you can render to God and humanity no greater service than to make the most of yourself. And that's how he ended chapter 1. It's absolutely powerful. Now, of course, at the very end there are some lines that might be a bit shocking to the average person. For example, one of them being, love is denied expression by poverty. In reality, being poor doesn't deny you to express a love. But what he's talking about is true though, that if you're in a place where you feel you're not living up to your highest ideals in life, it can cause enormous frustration for the average person without them being aware that this is the reason why they're feeling this way. It's because their soul wants to expand and express itself more fully. And then if we're not in the position to do so, we might cause that frustration to block off our ability to express love, to be an actually happy person. So if you've been struggling, you always want to analyze, how am I feeling and why am I feeling like this? And then you're going to discover sometimes it's going to be because you're impatient, because you want things to happen faster than they actually are happening, and so you become frustrated, and that frustration can overflow into all other areas of your life. But the more rich we become, the more easier it is to stay calm and relaxed in general, and to live life according to how you want to live it to begin with. This is why it's so important to keep an open mind about his words, and to analyze for yourself if you're applying them, and how you're applying them, and how good you are at applying them, and just become better at applying the wisdom. And that's all for now. We're gonna get back to the future chapters tomorrow. For now, let all of this sink in, the words of Wallace Wattles, and hopefully you're ready to go on a wild journey of mind expansion to learn more about your own mind powers. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.